we have a whole current system, that there's a whole sphere around our planet that is conductive. And that's how, back in the day, for the first time when we started our communication platform, that we no longer were communicating via wire, the way it worked is that we would send radio waves to that layer, we call it the D layer, and that would get reflected because it's a conductor. It gets reflected where you want it. And that's how we communicate across the ocean.
What?
Yeah.
Wow. I mean,
So
I'm
that's
dumber than
how
I thought. I
communication.
didn't know that at all. That's amazing. Okay. Um,
Yeah, and that was the birth of AT&T back in the day.
right. What year? And
It
what
was
year was
simply,
that?
we were talking about, um, if I understand correctly, mid 1900s.
The mid 19. Yeah, because those little parts in history have just accelerated human communication and what we're able to do so much. And it seems like the more we can speed up information exchange, the more we can learn and innovate and hopefully save ourselves from what seems like inevitable demise for what we're doing to the planet. But it seemed,
Yeah,
but I suppose so. At what point would a flare be able to disrupt all the electronics that we are so addicted to on this planet right now, both in
exactly.
necessity and through communication?
Yeah. So when I mentioned that solar flare is being absorbed by the top layer, what that means now is that if the solar flare is very strong, that layer is going to get very
Okay.
dense. That means a lot of air is breaking down and creating this very strong electric field or electric current on that sphere. So that means that all of these communication signals that we're sending out are going to get absorbed by that layer instead of getting reflected. So that's how solar flares are associated with radio blackouts.
Ah,
So we lose communication. There are times that we have lost communication altogether.
that's happened.
Yes, we have had
But
that
so
happen. And we have blackouts all the time too. And so GPS satellites are impacted by it too, because simply when the way you operate is that the communication signals get absorbed by these charged particles instead of propagating through just neutral
okay,
air.
because I thought there was a destruction of either satellites or just the mechanism in which those technologies worked. But it seems, if I'm understanding correctly, because the ionosphere is so charged and no longer able to reflect, that is what causes the blackout. And how long does that last?
Yeah, so typically, well, it depends on if it impacts the satellites also or not.
Okay.
So let me quickly tell you what are some of the other consequences and answer this question after. So you have now potential communication getting interrupted by the flare itself. The other thing that happens is that now, around 8 days later, that giant bundle of charged particles and magnetic fields is coming also towards you. And if you're lucky, it's going to hit Earth. So when that happens, that is when it just saturates and overwhelms our magnetic shield, which, the magnetic field that we have around Earth is constantly getting bombarded by the materials coming from
Hmm.
the sun. And normally it just, we just see very beautiful northern lights because all of these charged particles, they can come directly at the planet. They only can travel along those field lines. And that's why in northern and south poles, that's where normally you see northern
Okay.
lights, because those are charged particles that are hitting the atmosphere. So if that bundle is very powerful, then that can overwhelm our magnetic shield and shrink it. And that's when all of a sudden you have that sphere that I told you about. There's a lot of electric current
Hmm.
buildup during that process. And that's when you have your entire electric grid, which, if you've ever charged your phone via this contact
Yeah.
charger, the way it works is that you have a magnetic field that is created by one um, you know ring, and there's another ring in your phone that the magnetic field is impacting this ring, and that's how it charges, right? So this current is contactless and causes electric current in the other
Right.
ring, right? So analogous to that ring is the entire electric grid on our on the surface of our planet, which electric current is always going and making these light bulbs turn on. But now, if that change in magnetic field or changing electric current because of that storm, we call it geomagnetic storm, is so strong, it overcharges the electric grid such that our transformers start to fail because the electric lines get so hot, there's a lot of current and everything breaks down.
Right.
So not only now you have lost communication, but also your pipelines, oil pipelines, which are also a great conductor and looks like a ring, and they're all connected. Your electric grid, and in addition to that, there because the air is getting thicker or the drag is getting higher for
Right.
satellites, they can also lose momentum in space. That's when astronauts are also exposed to very high
Radiation.
radiation
Right.
dose because of those
So,
charged
so you're,
particles. So it's just
so you're saying we
multifaceted.
can't
So
communicate,
if
and
you
then do the transformers actually break, or there's something that because of the magnetic field they're no longer able to function and charge? Because
no, they break down.